Hi, everybody. Welcome to All Games New and Old. I am David Rodriguez here with another episode of The Mic Drop, where we interview people in the gaming community and then have a debate about a not too controversial topic in gaming. So, my guest this time is the design director of Thing 12 Games, Sean Epperson. How you doing, Sean?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm glad I could get you on here. You're my first designer type person. Everyone else has been, I know. It's very
I'm so
exciting.
sorry for your loss. This is what what a letdown. It's all downhill from here.
I've seen my views. It's very little lost, to be honest with you. But well, I mean, you never know when one's going to be big. But yeah, it's Anyway, but I want to have you on here for a few reasons. One, because I know you a bit. We've chatted for a long time and played games together, which is always awesome. And you have a lot of games that I have played, which is also great. And you have games, or at least a game that I know of coming up. There's probably more I don't know of that you may not tell me, but that's okay. I bet there's always something.
There's lots of somethings.
I assume. So before we get into all that, why don't you tell me your background, how you got into this ridiculous, gigantic hobby?
So, games has pretty much been a huge part of my life from the beginning. Of course, as a little kid, I played board games and played role-playing games, video games, and that's the video games section is kind of what drove me a bit. And I've been a video game producer since, early 2000s, working in the video game industry since late 90s. I've worked on platforms like the original PlayStation, the original Xbox, the Nintendo handheld platforms. I've made games for the Xbox, the current gen Xbox, and PS5. Name a platform, I've probably been a part of making games for it. Since that time. So when I was working at one of the handheld studios, the studio director decided he was going to have this big Magic the Gathering tournament. And I was like, oh, that's sounds cool. I've never played Magic the Gathering. He's going to buy cards for everybody. He's going to buy all the packs. Okay, so there's zero, buy-in for me. I can just play, and if I don't like it, whatever. I got into it and had a blast, and I just, I fell in love with Magic the Gathering. And I did that for a number of years, and at some point I realized what I was doing in Magic was really creating decks for an experience. I was designing experiences that I could have against other players and designing experiences to play against other players. And from that, I realized, well, why don't I do that in a way that other people can enjoy it as well? So I started trying to design my own games. One of them, our first one, we had to pull from Kickstarter just because it was a little too big and a little too grandiose for a first-time publisher. So we dialed back, and at that time, the company I was working for, the test lead, Badger Roulette, came up to me and he was like, hey, check out this game that I 3D printed. He had a 3D printer and he printed up all these dice. Came up with the game design as he was driving to Portland, I believe. And we sat down and played it. And at this point, I've started playing some games, kind of getting my feet wet in the hobby, if you will. And I had already started our company, Thing 12 Games, with my friend Sean, who's also a video game producer. And we just fell in love with his game. It was like, this is really cool. There's really something here. Because I work in the video game industry, I know a lot of different artists, and there's one specifically I think would be great to do the art for this game. So he's like, yeah, I would be interested in doing that. So Dice of Crowns, that was the first one that we successfully funded on Kickstarter. We published, it's on second print. It's been, it's really popular with people, and it's just been growing since then. So.
Well, that's kind of amazing. I don't know if I remember. I don't know if you probably had told me before, but I didn't recall that you'd started back in the video game industry. Is it how different does it feel? Because I'm not sure exactly. I don't know what like the areas like that you do the video game stuff in, but I know, video games, if you look at the credits, have this gigantic, massive list of people that are involved in putting a game together. Whereas, the board games obviously is a much smaller thing. I mean, does it feel vastly different what you're doing as far as like the amount of people you have to go through, or is it kind of similar because were you more like in with like a smaller group with video games?
Um, yes.
Okay, great.
So I've worked on teams that were a lot bigger. Like I've worked on a Aragon on the GBA was a role playing game. So
Mm,
there was a lot of different designers that were working on that. A lot of different artists, and a lot of different programmers. I think our team size was like a couple dozen people. So as a producer, I was wrangling all those people and trying to keep the vision of what the game was supposed to be, kind of in focus, and um, also working with the license holders and the publisher, and so a lot of like balance in that aspect. But I've also worked with teams where there's like four of us, myself included. So we've got like a programmer, an artist, a designer, and then myself, and maybe like we've got an audio engineer that comes in and does some audio stuff for us. So, really scale down. The bigger difference, at least so far, is for us as Thing 12, all of our games are new created. So we're not working with established IPs.
right,
Where on the video game side, I've actually worked with a lot of like the big IPs, like Spider-Man, and some of the Marvel stuff. I've done Disney
right,
games, so that's a much different beast because you have these people that are in control of it, and they have um, a specific need that things have to look like or have to feel like and stuff like that. So um, they're much different in how you need to approach things. The audiences are how you approach the audiences. Since most games are going to be sold digitally now, right?
right, right,
Um,
right.
versus like board games, they're all sold physically. So you're trying to touch base with local game stores or selling things at cons. So each one has like its own unique thing to it, and I enjoy kind of having my feet in both worlds. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I could imagine that. With Thing 12 Games, I mean, if you had the opportunity to have a licensed game, would you, or is that something you're kind of against for that company?
We're not against it. It's just there's a lot of finance that's tied up in it. So typically, what you're going to do is you're going to buy the ability to do something with a license, and you may or may not have to um, meet certain criteria for that license holder. But you're basically like buying permission to use something. Um, we're not at that point that we really want to do that yet, but I can foresee us, you know, being open to that idea if it made financial sense.
Right. Okay. So I noticed, I was looking online because I was like, how many of Thing 12 games have I actually played? Because I was certain there were some that I had not. But one thing I noticed when I was looking at that was like, so the first game, I want to say it was either 2016, 2017. Is that about right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've kind of weathered the storm, if there was one, of the pandemic. Like you came a couple years before that started, and it was an interesting time because I know games in general actually sold pretty well during that time,
hmm
but at the same time, a lot of the places that sold games did not. Did the whole pandemic thing, did it affect your company at all, or did you just kind of go as usual?
it definitely did have an impact on us. So there's two core people for Thing 12, myself and Sean Harold, who does a lot of the grunt work of finance and logistics and whatnot. Um, the fact that we're a smaller company is really what allowed us to weather that storm.
Mm,
Um, the downside is that a lot of our revenue comes from doing game sales at conventions. Well, for 2 years, we've basically not had conventions,
right.
so things that we were working on had to get kind of put on hold. So a lot of our games just sort of like we're hitting the pause button. We can do design work, we can do some development work, but we're kind of grinding to a halt, as far as
Right.
like progression goes. Um, where that progression is now starting to get kicked back up, and we have things coming up pretty soon for for Kickstarter, and some of our other games have been spun back up, and we're working back on those things again. So we're definitely feeling that swell start to rebuild, which is nice.
Yeah, that's good. There is a whole time period there where it's like I didn't know who was gonna pull through or not, or who is thriving in that situation. And I don't. I can imagine if I were in your position, I would probably be just a ball of anxiety every day. I don't know. It'd make me really nervous.
There was a
You
game
know,
I backed on Kickstarter, like the company. It was it's called Zero Gravity,
okay,
and it's a tabletop like fighting game.
right,
And it was really interesting because the game board is all metal, and so your pieces actually affix to the board, like on the walls, on the ceilings.
right.
So it was a really interesting, a play field. They planned on having their game, I believe, at Gen Con right when the pandemic hit. So they weren't able to
Oh
go,
man.
and they ended up having to fold because they're like, we have all
Mhm.
these games, but it's an expensive game, so it's harder to get it into retail, and it's a first-time publisher. And
Right.
what do we do with all this? We're just going to have to sell all of our stuff at a loss and fold. So it's kind of
Yeah.
unfortunate to see.
Yeah, that's too bad. I think I remember seeing that game on Kickstarter when it came out. Looked really intriguing. I don't think I
Yeah.
was planning to back at the time, probably because of money. But that's almost always why I don't back things, is because I just don't have stacks and stacks of money that I can toss. But that's rough. Yeah, and I think that it seems like that can happen kind of a lot. Did they? I'm trying to remember. Had they had the campaign concluded successfully and then they had to fold, or
Yeah.
did they not
No,
make?
they
Okay,
completed it, and
okay,
they sent it out, but they're like,
okay.
we're not going to be able to follow this up with anything. If you have problems, we're not going to be here. Like, we don't
Right.
have the stock to be able to like facilitate anything, and we just have to shutter our doors, which was kind of sad. We saw Tasty
Yeah.
Minstrel Games. The same thing
Right.
happened with them. Um, so I mean, the pandemic really did impact some companies and cause places to fold, but there were
Yeah.
some that were able to weather it just because they were smaller, or they were more agile.
Right.
They had less financial overhead that they had to try and like keep up on. Um,
Mm.
so that's kind of where we, fit in. So
Yeah. I'm curious once, because one of the things that has been affected by, I mean, at least in part by that pandemic, is the whole shipping craziness.
like,
That's a big scary thing. Like I know there's one person who I received a prototype copy, or I don't even know if it was really a prototype. It was a pretty dang close to done looking version of the game that had been on Kickstarter before, called Merchants of Infinity, but he was
mhm.
going to re-release it on Kickstarter. And so I filmed the review, like it's done, it's waiting, but everyone I guess started telling like you'd be crazy to do a big box game on Kickstarter right now. And so, that'll just wait until hopefully he gets to do it later, because it was a great game. But has that kind of thing affected you, and as far as like the types of games that you're looking to create right now?
Most of our games that we do are either smaller, or um, they're like a level 2 game or level 1 game.
Mm,
The stuff that we have published so far are things that you can quickly get into, whether you've played games or not. So we haven't done any like giant box games, or games with tons of minis. Like, we've actually kind of been avoiding that kind of thing just because of the inherent high risk that comes with it. And yeah, the cost of shipping things out is insane.
yeah.
We are waiting for our last Kickstarter, Dice of Dragons, to come in, and it's currently stuck in port. So we're
Oh
like,
man.
whenever like, it's kind of so well. Dice of Pirates, the reprint, is stuck in port. Dice of Dragons is coming across the water, but I'm sure we're gonna have some issue waiting for that to to get delivered. So as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, shipping is kind of a nightmare for anyone that has to move games from one location to another. It's crazy.
Yeah, it seems really scary. I mean, I don't have to deal with that in that direct way, but I mean, just recently there was a game that I just backed for $1 on Kickstarter, because I was like, well, I'll get it when the pledge manager comes around, and sure enough, it came around, and I think the game cost like 99 euros or something, right? And
Hmm.
so I'm like, okay, cool, I'm ready to do this, and I go, and the shipping was 97 euros, and I'm like, okay, and I'm not mad. It's not their, like, they probably have to do that, right?
Yeah,
But it's also like, man, I can no longer justify the cost to do that. So it's like, that's
yeah.
tough.
Shipping anything out of the country, oh yo
Mm,
yo, like the price on that is just astronomical now. Um,
yeah,
where before people were like, oh, free shipping, and really what they were doing is they were kind of bundling that into the cost a bit.
right.
But now, like anyone that's doing that, I think they're going to be destined to all kinds of problems. Like you
Yeah,
sort of have to go, well, will the shipping you'll have to pay whenever it comes up, we have no idea what the cost is. I guarantee you, if you
yeah,
quote someone a cost, that cost is going to be massively different, to the point
right.
where your game is ready and it goes out and you're like, oh wait, it's $50 more than we were expecting. Well, no company is going to be able to eat $50 cost on
Right.
every game they sell to someone. Like that's just
Yeah.
not realistic. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough thing. Well, hopefully it doesn't hurt you guys too bad. But so yeah, you kind of you touched on this before, but so I have not played every single game you guys have put out. So I don't know what percent. I played a good chunk of them. The ones I've tried, at least, all tend to be kind of like you said. They're a little bit lighter, like fast to pick up kind of games. Is that true pretty much across the board then for you?
Yeah. Like even I think our heaviest game, air quotes there, would be Seals of Cthulhu. But
Right.
even that is like it's quick to pick up and understand how you play the game, right? So,
Yeah.
um, if someone's played like chess, right? That's kind of like where it's at, where you're trying to
Hmm.
outwit the other player, and that's kind of what we look for in our games when we're talking with other designers. It's like, is this something that I could teach to someone within 5 or 10 minutes? Is this something that's going to be engaging and have some player interaction and stuff like that? So
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good spot to be in. I'm more and more appreciating that size. As much as I like big crazy games, like just getting those to the table, even once, much less multiple times, is it's a battle, for sure. And I'm sure I'm not the only person in that boat. Can you foresee a time, like, do you would Think 12 Games ever like take on like some like big beefy, I don't know, Euro or miniature heavy thing, or is that just something you're entirely trying to stay away from?
there is a worker placement game that I've been working on for, geez, a couple years now, and I I it's I've been working on it for that long because my focus has been on some of our other games that are farther up the pipeline. um,
Right.
but it's not a heavy crunchy game, but it's kind of a level 2, maybe level 2.5 or 3 type game, so it's definitely would
Mhm.
be the heavier one, but I'm trying to keep it so that's not um, super crunchy and super hard to learn. So it's trying to find that balance, right? So you want
Right.
something that there's enough to do and enough to think about, but not so much that it pushes it into that like super thinky level. Because I think people that are coming to us for games are expecting a certain level, and that's kind of where we're trying to be. Like, s-
Yeah.
you know, not the super 5.0 weight
Right.
euro game, but also not like a point 0.5, like, oh, there's no thought to this at all.
You're not doing a remake of Candyland or anything
Right,
like that.
exactly.
Oh man, that's a painful game. Oh gosh. I don't know.
Predetermined from the start.
Yeah, I
Yay.
don't. I understand it serves its purpose, but I don't know how people can complain about Monopoly when Candyland exists. Because, oh my god, I mean, Monopoly is not my favorite game by any stretch, but I mean, dang. Okay, enough about Candyland. But it's a rough. I mean, I'm gonna, it's good for kids, right? I've definitely played it with my kids, but the whole time I was like, Jesus, this is just. It's.
Well,
I've already either won or lost before we start. Like, it's
yeah.
just whatever it shows me is what's gonna happen. So, ugh,
Well, I think Candyland is a good thing for people to look at as to why it's problematic, because everything is predeterministic, right? You're not
right.
doing anything with that deck, so whoever flips over the first card, like, if you could just run that game without any player interaction or any
Yeah.
thought, and determine who that player is. So it's sort of a coin
Yeah.
flip.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, there are games, like, oh god, was it the gamer edition of Monopoly?
Oh
Like
yeah.
that's actually a fast game. I really like the gamer edition of Monopoly. I've played it 4 players in 45 minutes,
Wow, that's
and
good.
that includes teaching. So
Right.
like if you play the game how it's designed, it's quick and it's fast and it's punchy and there's interaction and everyone really enjoyed it. You know, which is sounds crazy for a Monopoly game.
Yeah.
Or the one I've been proselytizing recently is the Marvel Ultimate Uno, uh,
Right.
which takes Uno but adds some hobby elements to it. Because in that game, you're not just playing Uno; you're actually like making decisions and strategizing based on the character you're playing. So it's cool to see people like taking those older games and go, well, actually, let's tweak this and actually like put some player agency into it and let people
Right.
decide like how do I want to approach my gameplay, and that actually makes for a fun experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta say that Uno game, I would not have ever tried it had you not talked it up some degree because I'd seen it on the shelf. I went to a local game store and they were showing me, and I'm like thanks for showing me that.
Right.
Like cool. I was not excited, but yeah, that's a much more fun game than you would expect. So maybe they can get a few more of those to be a little bit nicer.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, but talking about fun, punchy games, you have a new game that, depending on when people are watching this, is either about to hit Kickstarter or maybe is on Kickstarter already. Why don't you tell us about that one?
So I actually have it here. Da, da, da,
You're ready.
Matches.
Fantastic.
So Matches is a really cool game that was shown to us by a designer named Danny. Danny he's a really interesting designer because he creates these games that are uh, quick and easy to learn, but have some very interesting uh, player agency to them, where you're thinking in ways or playing in ways that you wouldn't normally. And in matches is like, I call it trick taking adjacent.
Okay.
So in a trick taking game, one player is going to play a card and everybody else has to follow suit, right? They're playing in that same color, or maybe they have to match the same number. In this, a player is going to play a card, and then players either like a number card. So let's say I play a 7. Now, when it comes to you, what you're going to be playing is either a 7, a wild card that you can make a 7, or a series of cards that equal 7.
Oh, okay.
So there's
Interesting.
different ways to kind of like play your turn. And the reason why that's going to matter is if you play a card that is a direct match of that card that was previously played, then you're going to increase the point value of that card. So whoever wins the round will get all the points that have been generated for that particular round. Now, if you don't think you're going to win, what you want to do is you want to be able to play cards out of your hand that equal that number, because every pair of cards, every match that you've done on your side, you're going to get points for all those pairs that you've played. So you
Okay.
can be successful in the game and not win the round, which is a
Interesting.
very interesting like kind of swap of like how you would expect a trick taking-esque style game to go.
Mm.
If you pass, when you pass, you choose to discard any number of cards from your hand. So you can kind of tailor your hand a little bit for like, well, I've got these 3 cards that are all the same number. Instead of playing them now, I'm going to pass early. You get a point for being the first person to pass. You get to start the round, so you'll actually be able to lead, and maybe you can like juice that card up really high for a lot of points and try and win the round. If you can also play cards out of your hand face down and make them worth 1. So there's a lot of like, even if you feel like, oh, I just got totally screwed, someone put a card out and the card is 4, well, you can't play anything higher than a 4, and
Okay.
maybe your hand's like full of like 7s and 6s and 5s. Or like, well, that's great, I can't play anything. Well, you can actually play your card face down as a 1. Now
Okay.
you're not gonna get matches for those because they're face down. They're basically a faceless card, but it
Right.
still gives you ways to stay in if you so choose. So it's a lot more thinking than one would expect, and you have a lot more agency in the game than you would with like a standard generic trick taking game.
Right.
The theme for the game is actually set in our Seals of Cthulhu universe. So
Right.
thematically, there was a match factory. The match factory burned down, and what was left in the decimation, the ashes, is this box of matches. And why it was left in this pristine condition is part of the mystery and part of um, these extra storytelling bits that we're going to be putting into the game. Much like in Seals of Cthulhu, there's going to be things to discover and uncover within that box. We want it to be an experience when you first get it. So there's the game, but also the whole experience of like uncovering and discovering the game as well.
Right on. Yeah, I thought I remembered you saying that that was in the Seals of Cthulhu universe, and I couldn't recall if I even had heard what the connection was, and it sounds like it's supposed to be a little bit of a mystery. So, uh,
There is.
so that's kind of neat because I wasn't sure. Like I'm a real big like theme person, and it doesn't have to be this super integrated thing. I just need something there, and so hearing that makes me happy because it'll probably be a little more up my alley than if it was just strictly a numbers thing for sure.
Well, we're also like, there's a bigger thing that we're doing with these
Mm,
games. So it's not just like this game is set within the universe, go, right? There's
right.
actually something, this is step two in a
Hmm.
multi-step process that once people get to the end, they can kind of look back and go, oh, I see how this interlinks and what the purpose of this was. So there's
Hmm.
even more there than I think people understand. So it's going to be fun to kind of like go along this multi-year, process to tell this bigger overarching story that we're doing.
Yeah, well, dang it, now I'm really curious because I played Seals of Cthulhu, so I mean, I just kind of assumed it was okay, same world, that's neat. But yeah, if there's some kind of weird interlocking thing that I have to try to figure out, oh my god.
Oh yes, we have plans.
I love it. Yeah, no, that's great. Like, how many people does this game play?
Matches plays up to 6,
Okay,
2 to 6
does it start
players.
at like a 2 to 6? Okay,
Hmm.
because I know it seems like a lot of trick taking games are like 3 or higher.
Yeah.
It seems like so. Uh,
You can so the 2 player actually is pretty decent. Honestly, with any sort of like trick taking s game, the more players, the more more interesting it starts to develop. But even at 2 players, because you have that ability to play a card face down as a one, you're losing the option of making a match with that. But that lets you stay in. It makes it really tight, and they're like, when do I want to go out? Is that point that I'm going to get because I pass worth it? Maybe because I'm going to give you the points. So
right.
it becomes this really interesting kind of like back and forth battle.
Right on. And so how long is the campaign for this going to be?
It'll probably be that part we're still kind of working out. We typically do about a 2 to 3 week long campaign,
Okay.
so it would
Okay.
be into October sometime, maybe
Okay.
mid late October.
Sure. That makes all right. And I know different people have sort of different philosophies on doing this. Are you doing like stretch goals or anything along those lines, or is it or is it sort of just gonna be like the game itself?
There'll be a couple of stretch goals that we'll have. Really what we try and do is stretch goal the quality. Like there's a certain quality bar we have to
Okay.
hit, and we use the extra funds coming in to kind of like juice the whole production up and make it
Mm,
better. um, and then post Kickstarter, if we leave it up for people that want to back as late pledges, we use that to help kind of like juice up the production as well. Like, hey, we can actually do this thing now as well. So it's gonna be really cool.
right on. That's good. Well, I know I've seen you at conventions, kind of demoing the game. What kind of feedback have you gotten from people?
They've really been liking it. I had a couple of people. Gosh, what was that? One of the Portland cons. They kept coming back to the table because they wanted to play. Because they were having so much fun. They're like, "Can I buy this now?" Like, I wish I could sell it to you now, but
Right.
sadly, no. But it's going to be coming up in Kickstarter. And have them follow us on on Think 12, and because we're all over the various social media outlets.
Right on. So, like me personally, excuse me. I've played very few trick taking games. People try to say, "Oh, it's like I don't know, Hearts or whatever," and like I never played that either, so that's not helpful. Uh, if I think I played one or two, maybe. So someone like me comes up. Do you think that this is a game that is easy for someone new to trick taking to grasp?
Oh yeah, yeah. Because I've demoed to people that have never played a trick taking game. I've demoed with people that don't like trick taking games, but actually liked
Mm,
this one because
okay.
of it's not so constrained. Like I said, in a typical trick taking game, um, let's say we'll use hearts as an example, right? So you're leading with diamonds. Okay, so the only thing I can play is something that is in a diamond suit. If I don't have
Okay.
diamonds, what's my option? My option is to fold. Crap, I'm out. Right?
Right.
That's not super fun. Where in this, like, you have so many different options. So like, you kind of want to play a higher card in this because you want people to stay in. Because if they're able to play the card that you played, that's going to help juice up the value. If everybody passes
Right.
right away, you're like, well, I'm not going to get any points from it. So you're predisposed to try and like get people in. So you want to play easily matched cards. Um, but then like if it's too easy, they might be able to get lots of pairs and be able to outscore you.
Right.
So there's so many different ways that you can play and choices to make that it kind of takes the chains off being constrained within a trick taking style game, and like there's so many different options of what you want to do.
That sounds good. I don't want to have one of my earlier trick taking games be one that frustrates me immediately because I just can't get the cards I need. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, that's not very much fun. So and the components for this, is it all cards or are there other components as well?
So what we use are there's going to be cards, and then there's gems that actually track
Okay.
your points. The gems are basically like flame tokens. The whole idea is
Okay.
that you're like creating this fire, right? Um, and there's going to be two different colors and styles for gems for basic counting points, but also there's a match component, like a physical match, like
Oh,
a
okay.
3D. Right now it's a 3D printed one, but we'll actually manufacture a plastic piece that actually looks like a physical match, a wooden match, and that is the first player token. So who has that is going to determine, like who's going for next for the next round, and that's the person that's leading things. So there's some interesting like elements that kind of bring the theme forward. Um, and for people that want even more player interaction in their game, we have these things called burn cards. And burn
Mhm.
cards are the really kind of mean and nasty cards that you can add in. Um, there's going to be 4 burn cards that would be out. There's a deck of them, and you spend points in order to play these effects. So you're having to sacrifice some stuff on your end in order to
Okay.
use them. And they do things like, changing the number up, or making a card a wild, or
Okay.
making it so that every card played is one less or one more than it was. So they really change things up and add a lot more crazy chaos to the game. If that's kind of what you're wanting, a lot more like kind of in each other's face a lot more.
Right.
These are the cards that are for that. But for people that don't want that, they want that more like, okay, I have to try and outwit you and how I play. Then that's an aspect that they can play as well. So it's sort of like, which way do you want to go for your play? You can tailor your experience.
Yeah. I think it's great when games do that because I certainly have groups that I play with that would appreciate more kind of interaction and some that desperately would not. So that's nice to
Yes.
have the ability to adjust that because, when you have a cool game, you want to introduce it to as many people as you can. But some games you have to be like, yeah, not with you guys. It's
Yeah. Right.
not gonna be the thing. So just kind of how it goes. But so we got the gems, we got the match, and we got a bunch of cards. And
hmm
speaking of cards, people might want to or not want to do everything they can to protect those cards. So let's go to our debate segment. All right, so it's now time for the debate segment of the mic drop. So if you haven't watched one of these before, we're going to debate a certain topic that is a little bit of a controversy, but nothing too super serious. So in this case, we're going to talk about whether cards should be sleeved or not. Our sides in the debate are going to be chosen randomly, as well as our turn order. And we basically have 3 segments. We're both going to start with an opening statement. We're both going to do kind of a rebuttal, a middle section, and then we're both going to do our end statements. And then once it's over, we'll talk about how we actually feel about it, so that way we're not misrepresenting something that we are undoubtedly extremely passionate about. But the more important part is that if you're watching this, I want you to go down to the comments and tell us which one of us won. At the time this is going up, there are either 2 or 3 others, depending. If there are 2, then right now I'm undefeated. And you could choose to keep me that way. Or you could say we need a new champion. You know, I don't know if this is the 4th one, then I don't know what happened on that 3rd one yet, because it hasn't been posted yet. But the point is, we need to know who won. Neither Sean or I will sleep a wink asleep
True.
until we know who won this thing. So help us out. Okay, so here's what we're going to do, Sean. First, we're going to, I've got a little amazing magical randomizer here. It's going to pick a number from 1 to 10. It could just easily be 1 to 2, because what we're going to do is that if it is an odd number, you are going to be saying or debating that people should sleeve their cards. If it's an even number, you're going to be saying that they should not. Okay? I'm going to try to poke this odd number. So you're saying
People should not be sleeving.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So then we're going to do a turn order. So odd, you'll go first. Even, I will go first. Even. Okay. And you're doing not sleeve, right?
Yep, I am doing not sleeved.
Okay. Excuse me. I wanted to get my I wanted to do this with I interviewed Maurice. He's the one that may or may not have been published yet, and I have like my fake wrestling championship belt, and I wanted to be like, yep. So the champion so far. Someday I'll get it together and do that. Somebody, if I am in fact still somehow undefeated. I'm undefeated because no one told me and Riley who won that one. So. So I mean, it doesn't count as a loss.
To get
right?
votes out there.
Yeah,
I'll push for more votes. Vote for me.
I'm tossing and turning every night because I'll never know who won between me and Riley, and I better know who won between me and Sean. This is ridiculous. Okay. All right. So I'm saying people should sleeve their cards. All right. Behind me, you see a lot of games, and I'm not saying this to brag, but it is honestly not even a big portion of the games I have. You would see more, but I just don't have the Calyx shells for it. And I say that to say that this costs a lot of money. I put a lot into my collection, and I love these things. That's why I buy them. They're fantastic. I want to play those games hundreds of times in my lifetime. I may not do so, but I want to do that. I want to be able to pull a game down from the shelf in 20 years, having played it maybe several times a year, and I want that game to still be playable. I want everything to be in good shape. I understand little imperfections. You know, I'm reasonable here. No one has to be like in like a special suit to handle the things, but you got to do what you got to do. There are little things, small things that are easy to do that can make these games, these investments last possibly forever. And one of the easiest things, the thing that's most readily available to anybody, is card sleeves. You can get them with cool backings. You can get them without cool backings. You can get them clear. You can get them glossy. You can get them matte finish. Whatever your heart desires, you could buy them. You can buy really deluxe fancy ones. You can buy little cheap ones. It's up to you. And it's very simple. You just slide a card in there, and suddenly your card is protected, not just from the wear and tear of time, but from people being klutzy at the table, spilling their drinks. Now, you could be one of those people who says, oh, well, no food and drinks at the table. No one wants to play with you. No one wants that. They all want food and drinks at their table. They do. I'm sorry. Like, I know you want your cards to be pristine. So you can either accept buffalo sauce and Cheeto dust and spilled soda or beer or your drink of choice on your cards and have them warp them. And then you have to buy a new copy of the game if it's still in print. And if it's not, prepare to pay like 5 times the cost. Have fun with that. Or you could do this simple thing. Take a sleeve, put it on a card. The cards move against each other so nicely. It is not even just a protection measure. It makes it feel tactily better in your hands to have those cards sleeved. Don't have to buy your favorite games over and over and over again because of accidents. Don't do that. I know it's your favorite and you think it's worth the cost, but you could also buy other games. Don't do that. Get sleeves, protect your cards, be able to play them, show your kids, show your grandkids, show your descendants way down the line, even though you'll be long dead. You can smile in your crypt knowing that they are playing with pristine cards. And that's my opening statement.
Well, that's a good opening statement. What I would like to point out is that David's apparently playing with degenerate animals that are eating Cheeto Puffs at the gaming table, and any real gamer knows that that's verboten. We don't bring that to our table. See, I believe that gamers are a lot smarter than that, and they will bring food, but they made this wonderful thing, this miraculous invention called the napkin and the paper towel. And gamers will have those next to us. So when we get a little bit of detritus on our fingers, we can wipe that off. We can use a moist towelette to clean our hands and then return to our gaming because we are that refined of a person. I also know that game publishers, when they design these games, they know that the tactile experience is very much a part of gaming. So feeling the cards, feeling the texture of the cards, seeing the artwork uncluttered by a sheen of plastic covering it up, glaring off the lights as you're trying to see things, and you're showing your card a little bit differently so you can read it just right, or different artwork on the back that was never intended. Why is Pikachu on this card, where this is a game set in the metropolitan era of ancient Greece? Like, why is Pikachu here? This makes no sense. No, this is the true experience that the designer and the developers want you to have when you play the game. So playing your games unsleeved, that's the natural experience. That's really the core, the heart of what they're trying to convey to you as a gamer. And why should we say that, no, something needs to become between you and your game? No. We believe in you being the cultured person that you are, that you're able to take those cards and play them unfettered and unchained by the tyranny of plastic.
Very nice. That was some interesting points, Gatekeeper. I mean, Sean. Sorry. See, I believe here at All Games New and Old, we believe that the games are for everyone, whether you are a highly cultured individual or not. We want you to come to the table and have fun. And if the only way you can do that is to have Cheetos, then you should have the right to do that. We shouldn't tell you that, no. You have to eat kale or whatever you're proposing. You don't have to do that. You can have Cheetos. This is supposed to be a fun time. If you have fun eating kale, that's great. Do it, please. By all means, eat all the kale you desire. If you can't find any, they use it to decorate the buffet at Pizza Huts in the 90s. It's just go back in time and get some. It'll be fine. But see, I want people to come to my table who are just as happy sipping Budweiser as they are some fancy wine that is only allowed at Sean's table. I want everyone to come and not be constantly worried. I don't want to be stressed out. I don't want to look across the table because I understand. I don't want that all over my cards. I don't want to look across the table and be afraid that my friend, who maybe is not one of these super refined individuals living in a penthouse apartment, I don't want to worry that they're going to mess up the cards. And I'm sure they don't want to mess up the cards because I believe that even the unrefined can be good people. I want to put some sleeves on the cards, and that way everyone can enjoy the time the way that they want to. There doesn't have to be stress on anyone's part. They can be happy that they're enjoying the snack they like. They can use a napkin still, as Sean says, or they can wipe it on their shirt. I don't know. They could suck it off with their. It doesn't matter. Do what you want. The point is that if anything gets on my sleeves, that is a simple little wipe job. That's easy. Nothing is permanently damaged. Everything is going to be fine. My game will still be intact. I can have as many just catastrophically uncivilized people over as I would like, and everything will be fine because of those sleeves. Now, sure, you make a point. The ones with the backs, the art, unless you're really careful and tailoring every single sleeve you get to every single game you get, you could have Pikachu in Ancient Rome. That's a little weird. Also, a little judgy to point that out, Sean. Listen, if I think Pikachu belongs in Ancient Rome, who are you to tell me otherwise? Listen, this is my game. If I think thematically it makes sense for Pikachu to be there, how dare you tell me it's not? That's insane. Listen, you don't have to go to Sean before you play your game and ask how everything has to be. You don't have to get his approval for the snacks you eat. The best way you could tell people like my good friend Sean here to stop ordering them around is to just leave your cards. He can't stand it. Clearly. And you can enjoy yourself in peace. He looks angry, doesn't he? Look at him right now. He's laughing because he's thinking what he'd like to do to you. But just avoid it. Just leave the cards. No cards get damaged. Everything will be fine. You can eat what you want. You can play how you like. You can be the person that you are. Be yourself. Sleeve your cards. That's my reply to you, Sean.
Well, it's a good reply, I admit. See, not all of us live in these ivory towers that David lives in, and if someone gets some stuff on my cards, that's okay. That just shows character. These cards are now a little more interesting. They tell a story of the people that I'm around. See, I know that sometimes games get a little expensive, and I'm not going to require you to add extra expense on top of those games. I know David sits on his pile of money at home, cackling like Scrooge McDuck as he dives into his money bin. But, the games are already expensive. You don't have to buy more cards. You don't have to buy more sleeves. It's okay. And we know that, when you play those games and those sleeves are going to split eventually because you're shuffling them up and, oh no, well, we'll have to re-sleeve that. What do we do? Well, I guess we'll use this other sleeve. Well, that sleeve doesn't match the other sleeve, so now we know what card that is. Well, that's kind of an annoyance. How are we going to deal with that? Meanwhile, the games come to a halting stop because you have to deal with all this card splitting sleeve shenanigans. Well, that's no fun. Nobody wants that. They just want to be able to play the game. I've actually had someone spill an entire mocha on one of my games. And the game now just has a kind of a smell of mocha to it. We actually salvaged the game. We were able to wipe everything up, and it was perfectly fine. Why? Because we knew it was a quality game, and it was, in fact, a quality game. The cards didn't get ruined. The board didn't get ruined. We dealt with a mess, and now my game has a special aroma of mocha when I bring it out, and it calls to memories those times that we were gaming together. See, David sees that as a bad thing, but I know that it's not. Those memories you have, those are precious. That's why we game together. It's because of the memories that we create. He wants everything to be in plastic. You go over to his house, his couch is covered in plastic. You go to use his toilet, it's covered in plastic. His cups are covered in plastic. I didn't understand why that was there, but hey. Also, let's talk about some microfibers, plastic microfibers. Yeah, he wants more of that in the environment. See, I am an environmentalist. See, I believe that we don't need extra plastic. There's already enough kind of going on. He wants more sleeves, more stuff getting thrown away. No. We're going to play the game as it was meant. We're not going to impact the environment any more than we need to. We're going to embrace the things that life brings us, and it will be part of the experience that we have together. We don't have to live under the tyranny of plastic as David wants us to. No. Let's free ourselves. Let's embrace the chaos of life. Let's live life unsleeved.
That was very nice. I don't know how many people out there knew this. I don't think it's come up on the channel. I, for many years, managed shoe stores. And one of our most popular kinds of items in the summertime were the flip-flops. And I bring that up because I feel like Sean would be very popular in my store in the summertime with all that flip-flopping he just did. He went from being against these things getting on your cards to being all for it and saying that it adds character and odors to your cards. That's fantastic. Yeah, I like the smell of mocha too. I'm sure I'd love the smell of that game. Not everything is quite so pleasant or keeps its aroma nice for so long. But sure, I mean, if you like, I don't know, your card smelling like 5-year-old fish oil or whatever, that's great. I mean, I guess have at it. Sounds horrible. Enjoy the rats that's going to attract. Fantastic. You know what you could do is you could play with sleeve cards and just buy a mocha and drink the mocha at the table and smell mocha while you play with protected cards that don't attract pests. Now, excuse me. Now, I will say that Sean's argument about the environment, those are some very valid points. You know, plastic generally not great for the environment. It takes forever for that stuff to break down. I understand that, Sean. I'm not, I can't really reasonably argue that that is not the case. But we can't both want things to last and not want things to last. The plastic that we're using, we don't put them on our cards and then throw them away when the game is done. We keep them on the cards. As I mentioned before, these cards could last generations if you take care of them. We don't want that plastic to break down. That's why we put it on the cards. We want it to protect our cards forever, possibly. How cool would it be? Imagine your great grandkids getting your copy of, I don't know, Dominion or, you know, name your game with a lot of cards. How amazing would that be? Imagine the sorrow of this world if you somehow stumbled across a Black Lotus card from Magic and you had no way to protect it. It's just a matter of time before that thing is garbage. In fact, I don't know if any of the original ones would even still exist. They'd probably be destroyed by now. You need sleeves. You need sleeves to protect them. And it's not even just for the monetary value like Magic. I mean, you want to pass these on. These are great heirlooms for the family. You know, you play with your kids. They love the game. They remember all those nice family nights of entertainment, and then they play with their kids, and so on it goes down the line. Also, let's be realistic here. If all the gamers sleeved all their cards, that is a lot of plastic. I understand that. But the amount of effect we're having on the environment is absolutely, like, it's almost nothing compared to huge companies and the amount of stuff that they dump in the ocean. I mean, we're not really the problem as the consumers. We have the one way to benefit ourselves and keep our things protected, and it happens to be plastic. We're sort of stuck with that. You know, blame the oil companies and whatnot for what they do to the planet. Don't beat yourself up. You're not destroying anything. You're protecting your items. You're protecting the good times you've had. You're providing fun that'll last forever, and they'll be able to look back and say, yeah, we have this game. We have this fun night of gaming, all because your great grandfather bought these sleeves. And now we can play Dominion 2nd edition. Yeah, they're on like 19th edition now, but 19th edition's stupid. Everyone agrees to that. 2nd is where it's at. They'll know. And it'll be all because of you. You saved your family from a less than great time because you sleeved your cards. You didn't hurt the environment. You just did what you could to protect what you had. You did what you could for your family, who you love. Or maybe you don't, and you can leave your cards unsleeved. It's up to you. Those are my final thoughts.
Wow, interesting. I find it fascinating that David brought up flip-flops because in order to buy all the sleeves that you're going to need for all those games that you see behind David and all the games that you do not see behind him, flip-flops are really all you're going to be able to afford to have on your feet. Now, it's really sad when in the winter there's snow and you're walking around in flip-flops and people say, Sean, why are you wearing flip-flops? Well, I had to sleeve all the cards in all of my games. I had to buy so many sleeves that flip-flops were the only thing that I could afford to get. That's sad. We don't want to put people in that financial peril that Dave seems perfectly fine for you to be in. No, we believe that once you invest in your game, that's all you need to spend. That you need to waste more money on top of everything else in order to play that game. Because you get home, you've got your game. I'm so excited, and you open it up, and there's small cards, and then there's bigger size cards, and there's 6, 7 different decks of cards. Oh no! Now I need to go buy all these different sleeves, and what size do I need, and where am I going to get all these things, and what card backs do I need? There's so much extra. No, don't burden yourself with all of that nonsense. No, just learn the game. Play the game. Bring your friends over. You can bring your friends over the day that you get that game and play it and not have to worry about whether or not everything is in some plastic chamber. No. If you really want to experience true joy, if you really want to experience a game how it was intended, if you don't want to burden yourself with adding more plastics into the environment, which I know David said is okay, that you just jump into the fire along with everyone else. Hey, these people are dumping the environment, so don't worry about it. You can feel free to just jump on board with them. Your little extra isn't going to make a difference. Feel free to trash everything. We know that you're smarter than that. We know that you realize that really every little bit helps, that if I can reduce my part of the problem, that's a good thing. And being able to bring a game home, play it unfettered, unchained, being able to bring your game home and just enjoy it for the spectacle that it is, that's really where fun is. And that's what we want to support.
All right. Fantastic.
That was fun.
All right, that was fun. That was a debate, folks. So let us know in the comments or even via Twitter, but it's easier if it's all in one place to do it in the comments. Let us know who won. Let Sean down easy. We don't want to. No, okay. Just let us know. I am just always curious. I just want to know. This is important. I spent minutes coming up with my arguments, and I've been pondering it. I've been pondering it at least for a day. So anyway. So, all right, so let's talk a little bit about this issue for real here, and
Yes.
talk about where we stand on it. So, you actually are not a fan of sleeves, right?
Not typically. If something's gonna get a lot of reshuffling, like or if something's gonna get a lot of like hand play, if you're worried about the back of a card getting marked somehow and it revealing information, then yeah, we would sleeve. We play the Resistance with sleeved cards. Now, those aren't cards you're shuffling a lot. I mean, you shuffle them up once and then deliver one to everybody. But the bigger concern is that if the Assassin's card gets marked at all, then that's kind of telling, right? So we actually sleeve those cards. But the majority of the games I play, I don't sleeve at all. I hate shuffling cards that are sleeved. It's always kind of a hassle and a pain. Getting them to fit in the box is always a bit of a hassle. Some boxes are designed for it, some aren't. So I just prefer just to go sleeveless. Back when I used to play Magic, I still wouldn't sleeve cards, and like playing with a more expensive card and just raffle shuffling it and watching someone go, "Oh my god!" It was like that gave me just a little bit of joy, like watching them just lose it.
That's awesome.
Yep, this is a $20 card. I'm like, oh my god.
I hadn't even thought about the possible sadism route that you could go with this. That's fantastic. Yeah, like I'm not like super strongly for it. I'm bad at shuffling in general. So you add sleeves to the mix, and suddenly it's like a much trickier thing, oftentimes anyway. That being said, I do sleeve the games occasionally, and I can't even figure out what my criteria is to like. Suddenly, I'm like, I am going to sleeve this one. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense. Like I sleeved all my Dice Master stuff, and that is, or at least was, kind of collectible. Like they have different rarities, so it kind of sort of makes sense, and you don't have to shuffle them, so easy as far as that goes. But there's been other ones I've just kind of randomly said, like, yeah, these ones have to be sleeved, and I have no clue what makes me do that. But I think it's unreasonable to be like, okay, well, if I buy any game, I have to get sleeves for that game, because I don't even know how much cost you're talking about adding on, especially over the entirety of a collection. Dang, that would add up to a lot of money. Like I can't even, if I went through and figured out which games I don't have sleeved and I bought sleeves for all of them, I would need to take out a loan. Like I'm certain,
Right.
like there's no way. It would be so dang much money, and I could have used that to buy other games, or if I needed to buy a second copy of a game because I ruined the cards, like it's it's paid for if I don't buy all the sleeves. It's so much
Exactly.
easier.
We do
Yeah.
demos. So when we demo Click Click Boom, which is a lot of like shuffling up your hand every turn and passing cards out to other players and they're shuffling up, we demo that with sleeves, and we actually like made
Right.
sleeves for that game specifically
Sure.
for that reason. But it's really up to the person.
Yeah, I mean, I could see, especially for a demo, you're gonna have a lot of people handling it that you don't know, and you probably don't have tons and tons of backup copies, so it's a little different. But yeah, I just don't. I mean, like I'm not against it. I just don't necessarily see the reason why people have to do it for every single box. I'm not a person who gets mad when the box won't fit sleeved cards, so I'm like, well, I just won't sleeve that one. That's easy. Like, it's
Right.
fine. And then, because the cards aren't, it's not like every card is a standard size, like you mentioned. Some games have multiple size. Like if you buy Arkham Horror, you've got a million little cards, and you've got some regular
Right.
size cards, and even those regular size cards aren't the same as the ones over here. And then this game has tarot cards, and it's like, oh man, I can't. Like, how do you even find all this? I was trying to find sleeves for a deck building game I have, and I looked up, and it was like whatever measurement. And then I was trying to find sleeves of that measurement, and I couldn't quite do that. I was like, well, do I want to get like, I mean, you can't go smaller, obviously, but like if I go
Right.
bigger, is it going to be stupid? Like, I don't,
Have
what a
like this
mess.
floppy end. There's like that's
Yeah.
kind of annoying.
It's the worst. I don't know, but I don't know. And I've never felt as publicly right wing as I did being like, don't worry about the environment. It's fine.
That was a fantastic. Like, oh, I could dig into that one.
It was so hard to spit those things out. I'm not gonna lie. Like this, folks, it was for the purpose of winning a debate. That's all it was. I don't want hate mail about this. I have no idea how much like this sleeve. Even if I was partially right, like even if you're like, well, these sleeves on their own don't make that big a difference. They're undoubtedly still coming from a company that is doing a lot of stuff with plastic, and I'm not trying to call out any company about their practices on how they deal with waste, but I guarantee you some of them are not doing it in the best way, at least, right?
Yeah.
And so you are, even if you're buying sleeves for one game, you still are a little bit supporting probably something that may not be so great for the environment. Like your sleeve may not ever get stuck on a bird's head or something.
Right.
Cool, but the production of that sleeve was something. I can't also come out too hard against plastic either, because Lord knows I'll buy a game with minis. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So I mean, I can only say so much, but I definitely can't take the stance I had where it's like, this is absolutely nothing, and don't stop thinking about this. It's nothing. So that's a rough one, but see, that's things like, I mean, that's relatively minor. That's why I like these debates. I'm never going to do an actual serious topic for a debate, because I don't want anyone to have to take a side that is actually icky, and
yeah,
and I don't want to do it. So I mean, it's one of those things. So I'll keep to the silly stuff, and we can have serious discussions about other stuff some other time, I guess. But and that's fine. I'm just gonna knock my thing around. All right. Uh-oh. I saw a hand creep over across.
My wife was trying to go by, and she's like, I don't know if I'm in frame or not. So you see his hand kind of come.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
It was almost a little creepy. If I didn't know there was a hallway back there, I'd be a little creeped out by like hands kind of like creeping across the screen. It'd be a little strange. Oh my gosh. Okay. Exactly. It's a little terrifying. All right. So before we get to to getting out of here. Is there anything else you wanted to tell us about matches before that we may not have hit on before?
Yeah, so basically, that game will be up at the end of September 27th. So Tuesday is usually a Kickstarter day for a lot of people, so be looking for it on the 27th. If you want to follow us on social media, we're at Think 12 Games on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and we'll be blasting it out across all those platforms. You can also send us emails if you have any questions about anything to thing12.games@gmail.com. Email us there. We love talking to folks, so hit us up on anything and tell us what games you like, or what things you don't like, whatever. We like interacting with the whole board gaming crowd. So
He really does. I've seen a lot of him interacting with the board gaming crowd. He's a fantastic follow on Twitter. Think 12 Games is. So
lots of dad
check
jokes.
that out. Lots of dad jokes, which I very much appreciate. Definitely go and check out the Kickstarter. I some of the questions I asked, I kind of knew the answer to because I'd seen a demo of it. We even, I think, had a video of a demo from Oddmall, so you can guys look at that as well. But there'll probably be prettier stuff up on the Kickstarter page, I imagine. But yeah, so but definitely go check that out as well. So don't forget to go into the comments, let us know who won. Additionally, if you have any ideas for these debates, I'm always open to them. I've gotten a lot of people giving me some ideas, but theoretically we could run out eventually. So give me your idea so that we can keep this ball rolling, because this is one of the most fun things I do, I think, is doing these insane debates. So, all right. So I do hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please hit like and subscribe and click the little bell icon so you can know about the next time we put out a video. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you all around the table again at All Games New and Old. Bye. If you enjoyed that video, you might also like this one.
Or this one.
If you like any of our videos, what you should do is click this little button to subscribe so you'll know about the next time we put out a video.
We'll see you around the table.
Bye.
Bye.